Hi friends, it's Jess with our Bipolar. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, just a little bit about me. I have bipolar 1. I was diagnosed 24 years ago when I was a sophomore in college. I would be considered high functioning, which just basically means, I have a long-term career, I'm married, I have a child, all those things I'm able to keep up with. I still do have symptoms that pop up. So, we all have symptoms with bipolar. But today I'm here to tell you that I lied accidentally. Yes. So if you remember my video talking about my first full-blown manic episode, yeah, that wasn't true, and I made a mistake. I'm actually here to talk to you today about what I think was my first full-blown manic episode, and my friend Sam is here to talk about it. She was there. My friend Sam, gosh, we've known each other since we were kids. She's seen me through everything with bipolar, before bipolar, during the diagnosis, afterward, and I'm very lucky that she has been standing by me all this time. There have definitely been times where I have been manic and been very, cutting, and I'm not going to cry, but just been very unfriendly to her, and she has stood by me regardless. So thank you so much for being here, Sam. It's so good to see you. And I know if we still lived in the same city, we would see each other all the time.
Yes.
So today, what we're here to talk about is an incident that happened 24 years ago. It was a few months before I was diagnosed. So this was in July of 1999, a long time ago. And we went to Penn State to visit some friends who were all in the same fraternity. And we were up there for Arts Fest, which is a recurring thing, I understand. But we went up mostly for partying, drinking, having fun. I don't ever remember attending a festival. Do you, Sam?
No, no,
No,
there
we,
was
we
no
didn't do
festival.
that. No. But
There
so
was no
this
art and
was,
arts fest.
yeah, this was before my diagnosis. And as you'll see, we'll talk about what happened. But I think we knew something was not right, but we obviously had no idea that I had bipolar and I was in mania. And before we get into it, I'm just going to talk about a few things that could have triggered the episode. Obviously, bipolar is a genetic disorder, so I already had the genes for it, but what could have triggered it, I was taking an antidepressant already. I was being treated for depression, and that could have triggered mania. Also, we were drinking and we were smoking marijuana, and both of those things can trigger bipolar episodes. And if you want to go back, I have another video talking about 4 lifestyle choices that triggered bipolar symptoms. I'll link it down below, and I'll also link the video about the first manic episode, which is now not the first manic episode. So, Sam, let's sort of dive right in. It's hard, it's hard to remember. This is 24 years ago.
Yeah.
So we're not going to remember all the details. But do you have any remembrance of like even driving up there? Because I mean,
Yeah.
it's 3 hours away from where we lived.
Yeah. And for those of you that know Penn State, it's sort of in a remote part of the state. It's, it's a very rural drive. So, usually Jess and I took turns because we went there pretty frequently. I
Yeah.
drive one time, she drive. We were very good about going back and forth. But when we got there, it was pretty immediate. We saw our friends and then let the party begin. I mean, we were 19.
Yeah.
So, we would start with, I think at the time, Jess and I drank beers just like everybody else. And we would go hit some bars and we would drink at the frat house. And because didn't know just one person there, we knew a lot of people. And I think we had day drank all day. And that once we got there and went out, and then we went back to the frat and we I mean, and like Jess said, we've known each other a long time. So I've seen her through our adolescence. I've seen her drunk. I've seen her stoned. And that night we smoked, and it was later in the evening, I believe. And I'd seen Jess, smoke. And this particular time, it was different. And I guess we all get goofy, depend on when we smoke, how much we've eaten, how much we've drank. But this time, Jess was different. And Jess, I'm trying to remember, but I do remember now that I'm probably a little bit more educated on Manic, what those signs look like. I just remember you being like very, like you said, like high energy and saying crazy, what I perceive to be crazy for Jess things. And, the story stuck out in particular, not because looking back now, I'm like, oh, well, Jess was having something, an episode. But at the time, we thought it was funny because we were all like, why is she acting this way? And I think I said something, and please don't hate me, to Jess's subscribers. I said something like, Jess, what the hell? Just jump out of the window or something, because it was just, she was so wild, and it was like so uncharacteristic for you to
It's
be
like,
this.
yeah, to set the
Like
stage,
usually,
like I'm like,
yes,
introverted. I'm not like super like social. I mean, I was social with my friends, but I
yeah,
was just like on 10.
yes,
And it was the kind of thing where I remember a friend of ours walked in the room and he hadn't been with us. And he was like, I want to feel like that. Like he thought it was
uh-huh.
awesome. But the people who had been with me all night were like, get the hell away from me. Like, what are you doing? Jump out the window.
Yeah, which sounds horrible now. Like I have to say, like looking back, it's like had I been more educated, I would have been like, oh, like something's not right here. But at the time,
No.
and it's funny because we told this story for obviously years, and then of course Jess was diagnosed shortly after, but we told this story for years. Like it was the funniest story. Everybody remembered it because it stuck out. It was not characteristic of you to
Well,
be
that's
this
what, yeah.
elevated.
And like, I hate to say, like, I know we're laughing about it and it is funny to us, and nothing serious happened. I mean,
No.
it wasn't like the kind of situation where like she needs to go to the hospital or anything like that, but it was just very out of character. And I know as I've been like thinking about all this time, I remembered some things that I'd kind of forgotten. Like, do you remember from the very beginning of the day, I became very fixated on this one guy in particular. And then I spent a lot
Oh.
of time with him. I won't say his name, but I spent
Yeah.
a lot of time with him that day. I didn't sleep with him, but it was probably a symptom known as hypersexualization or
Oh.
hypersexuality, where I just became obsessed with this person. Where looking back shortly after, he was not my type at all. He was not the person I thought he was.
Yeah.
And I just like built him up in my mind over the course of, a single day and night. And I remember, I was so up. I was so like high on life at the time that I didn't sleep all night, and I kept waking him up. I was like, no, no, don't sleep. Like this is all the time we have together. Like kind of thing,
Oh, I
which you
didn't
may not
remember
have even
that.
known about. So, and then afterward, I was still manic, which now I know I was manic. And I was like, even considering transferring to Penn State, not just for him, but just be like, that was such an amazing time, this amazing person. Like, I should go to school there, which of course, pretty soon after, yeah, my life sort of fell apart. I got
Yeah.
diagnosed in early fall and I had to leave school and so of course that didn't happen. But yeah, I was being so impulsive and just so out of my ordinary personality. And even I sort of knew it, but I was like, this is great. Like I feel wonderful. Like
And obviously it went on beyond like the rest of, I mean, any of you that have ever smoked, it's, or weed there, that is like, that after a certain time it deviates and you're good. But I mean, obviously for you, that was not the case that night.
well, yeah, because that's it had triggered something that was something else, which was mania.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you because I just really don't remember, and this probably didn't happen, but did you see any signs of psychosis? Like, was I talking about seeing things that weren't there, or hearing things, or just like being extremely paranoid, or anything
Yeah, I
like
think you were
that?
paranoid. I don't remember any psychosis.
I didn't say like, what's that over there, or
I
anything
don't
like,
remember. I think I would have remembered something like that, but I
yeah.
do feel like, yeah, extreme paranoia beyond the normal what we would give you. And
Okay.
obviously, like none of us were experiencing that. So it obviously was, I think it stood out because, you each have your own feeling when you're in that state, but in
Doing
your
that. And
case,
I'm
it
not
was,
usually, I mean, I haven't done that for a very long time. And I just wasn't the type who usually got paranoid from just from marijuana. Like,
yeah. If you take the normal way you felt and then it was just so over the top, everything, like everything you said was just not, it was out of character for you. And I think like after it had gone on for a certain amount of time, that's when we were like, I looked
it's
at
a
whoever we
lot.
were with, which by the way, we were in like a safe, I mean, we're so lucky. We were in a safe environment. We were with people we knew from high school that we trusted, that I known since, a long time as well. And so I think, thank God. But yeah, I mean, it was just it was very hard.
It's funny too, because I remember, I'm sure I was annoying everyone, but like the guys we were with, like they were very close guy friends of
Yeah.
ours, but they're like so nice. Like, I don't think they really said anything, but of course, like you and I were so close. Like, of course you, like I would have too, like I would have been like, what the hell? Like, you need to stop, like, be
Yeah.
quiet. But I was just like, there was no containing it, like
Yeah.
I could not contain it.
Yeah. And you and I had no filter with one another. So I feel like we always called each other out on stuff. So that just happened to be the time where I was like, dear God, like, what is wrong? Like, stop, like, just go, like, go somewhere else. And that's again, that's why I think we found the story so funny. It was just like, these stories you don't remember a lot anyways, but like to this day, Jess and I were like, this story,
Well,
you
and
know,
Sam brought it up to me, and I was like, oh my gosh, like that was before my diagnosis. Like in my mind, I think I thought it was like the summer after or something. I don't know what, but I totally didn't realize, and that's why I have always thought that my first manic episode was right before I got diagnosed, which happened at Pitt, in my dorm room. But this preceded it by months, and I can't believe I mean, I don't remember the drive home. Like, did you have to handle me in some way? Like, did you
I
just
don't think
drive?
so. I think
I don't know.
if anything, you were now knowing that you didn't sleep all night. I'm sure it was a rough next day for you. But I was even wondering if I knew maybe you had been on antidepressants, but like I don't remember that in hindsight. And I also don't remember you saying like I feel different or but you said now looking back like you were like I knew like I was different, like something was different, something was
Oh,
off,
yeah.
I was not myself. And now like the fact that you're remembering these other details is crazy to me because I kind of remember that you'd stayed up all night maybe, but
Well, you might not have known because I was in bed. It wasn't like
yeah.
I was out doing stuff. So let's just talk a little bit about if you had any kind of bystander guilt or just like perspective. Like, did you feel badly? I mean, I don't think you should have felt badly at all. None of us knew what was going on. And
Yeah.
I wasn't going to harm myself or harm anyone else with what was happening. It
Yeah.
wasn't to that level. But I mean, like over time since then, it's been 24 years. Like, did you feel bad? And I hope you didn't.
I I didn't at the time. We were so young. I mean,
Yeah.
19, you're still grasping life and all you're doing is partying. And I think looking back on it, I was like, man, like I wish I would have known and like not treated as this like funny thing. Like, how could I have been there for you? But I don't even know what I could have done in my 19-year-old self other than, be with you and say, Jess, this doesn't seem like you. But, again, it's a different time. It's a different perspective. So yeah, I try not to beat myself up about what I could have done differently. not said that, to you. I mean, looking back, I was like worried about even telling that part of the story
Oh
because
no.
I didn't want people to be like, what a horrible good friend you have, but please know that like this was had if I knew Jess was bipolar at the time, and keep in mind this was years ago before people mental illness was on the forefront of your mind, like it was not spoken about, it was a stigma to even talk about. You say, I think even back then we'd say, oh, you're so bipolar, you'd say it like you're so bipolar. And now looking back on it, it's like, no, like that's a real thing. Like when people say you're so psychotic, you're so this. But now that I've become more educated on this disease because of you. Now it's like, God, if that would happen and we hang out today, which both of us do not party like we used to, at least, so looking back, I'd probably approach it differently now. Like, okay, Jess, like, is something going on with your like, are you feeling off?
Like,
um
do we need to
you
go
know
home? Do we need to?
yeah, but
Of
back then,
course.
everybody's kind of selfish in their own party, right? And for us, I was just like, oh, like it must have been some bad weed, like who knows, she took too much, she didn't
Something.
need anything.
Yeah. No, yeah. And I think it's one of those things too. I know like it seems maybe a little strange to laugh about it, but even now, I feel like if we can't laugh about these things, it's like, what can we do? We can cry about it. Like we
Yeah,
can, like I think it's good to be able to find some humor even in hard times or like
yeah,
emotional times because I mean, gosh, I don't want to be like so depressed over like, God, this is my life. It's like, no, I had an extremely rough time, starting shortly thereafter. I
mhm,
had about almost 10 years of like not being on great meds and not taking proper care of myself. And, since then, my life has been, really good. Like, yes, I still have symptoms. Like, at least once a year, I'll go through a time where I have symptoms, but it's like they don't stop me from living my life, doing my job, taking care of my
yeah.
daughter, like all those things. So, I mean, if we can't laugh about these things, it's like, gosh,
Well, at least
there's
you have a
nothing to
reason for
say.
acting the way you are. So I don't know what everybody else's excuse is, but I mean, looking back on it now, like, why that happened. Like, what was behind it.
Right. And another thing that happened, this has nothing to do with me at all, except that it was my suitcase. But I remembered that there was a younger guy who was friends with one of our friends who came up that weekend. And I don't know how I just sort of like remembered this randomly. And he had thrown up on my suitcase, like
I
on the
remember
outside.
that.
Do you remember?
Yes,
It was so hard
I
to get it
remember.
off. I was like, well, at least I didn't do that. Like, like
Yeah, I remember that now. Oh my gosh, I didn't remember that until you just said it.
it was actually a really, I mean, it sounds weird to say, but it was a really fun weekend overall, even though obviously I was not myself. But I also wasn't so manic that I was like really uncomfortable, or like feeling like I couldn't have fun. I was still having fun at that point. So,
Yeah,
that's kind of how it can be. And then it can get scary, but this wasn't scary. The manic episode that I talk about in that other video, my
yeah,
first full blown manic episode, that gets scary. And
yeah.
there's psychosis involved and all of that. So, but this time it was sort of like my little like first baby manic episode, like my first stepping,
Your
dipping my toe
introduction,
in.
your
Yeah.
introduction to manic episodes.
Gosh. So is there anything else? Is there anything else you'd want to say about it?
No, no, I think honestly, like, I remember the story more about your first real full blown manic episode I wasn't there for than this one. And I'm watching that video back. I remember that story like it was yesterday. Like it's the details of this, what you would tell me about that story. So it's weird that I remember the one story that I wasn't there for more than the one I was there for. But
Well, it was yeah, it was more memorable in some ways, I guess. But also like I remember I would talk to you about like things I would do, like I would write in these journals.
yes,
I don't do that at all anymore, but I used to write in these journals and I would think I was coming up with all these like great ideas and making all these connections. And it was great to have you as a friend during that because like you would say something and I would laugh and then I would kind of realize like this is really ridiculous. Like what am I doing? Like it was just good to have like someone there who was like keeping it funny and keeping it real, you know, like
One of the journal things I remember is you were hyper focused on some family, like a famous family. And like, I
I
mean, you
can't.
were dissecting it down to like the most intricate things. And I was like, what in the what are you right? And you said you wrote like 50 pages on this famous family. And I was like, what is there else to talk about? Like this
No,
journal was full of like the most like wild topics, but it wasn't just like one thought. It was like you literally dissected it into like chapters.
I remember, I don't remember who, it was people from like the 70s. It wasn't even like
Yes.
really famous people, but I was like brothers or cousins, like bro
Yes. Brothers
kind of
or
thing.
cousins. I remember that.
I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, why does this matter at all?
Yeah.
It doesn't. But
And I
that's what
remember you talked
happens.
about the X-ray vision, but I don't think you touched upon the fact that you kept. Did you touch upon the fact you kept messing with your eyes? Do you remember that?
I don't remember. What was
You
I
were
doing?
messing with your eyes so much that your eyes were almost swollen shut by the time your dad got there, I think. Like you kept,
Sure.
I swear to God that you told me that you were playing with your eyes because something and like you kept like and I think it had something to do with the x-ray vision, but I remember that your eyes were swollen because you
I,
kept messing with them. Maybe your dad will remember.
well, I've tried talking to my, it's kind of sad in a way, but like I've tried talking to my parents about that time and they remember so little. I think they've like blocked it out.
Yeah, maybe.
I
And
don't remember
keep in
that.
mind, my recollections are only from what you told me like 20 some years ago, but that stuck out to me. I didn't remember the x-ray vision, but I remember that you were picking at your eyes or doing something with your eyes and
Maybe
that
while I was looking in the mirror or something.
correct. You were looking in the mirror
I remember
and you were
that.
either picking at your eyes or doing something with your eyes for like what you said was like a long period of time. Like not just like, oh, let me fix the, like an
Yeah.
extended period of time and your dad wasn't there yet.
I mean, I totally believe you. I just don't, I really don't
Oh
remember.
yeah.
But that's
Yeah.
another thing. I mean, first of all, it's been 24 years. So we're not going to remember things. But also,
No,
when you're in mania, your memory is, not
you don't remember
not
stuff.
normal. Yeah. I mean, you're not going to remember things. But I think we should probably wrap this up. Thank you so much for doing this.
You're
I
welcome.
it's just so nice to see you too. But thanks for coming on and filling in the holes in the story because like I said, I don't remember everything. But yeah, and thank you everyone for watching this video and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.